Welcome to our channel Latest Trends in Education. In today's video, we're diving into the instructional cycle. Instructional cycle is a key framework that helps educators create more effective and engaging learning experiences. Whether you're new to teaching or looking to refine your skills, understanding the instructional cycle is crucial for developing strategies that promote deeper learning and student success. Let's explore how this cycle works and how you can implement it in your own teaching practices. The instructional cycle has 5 phases: planning, teaching, evaluating, reflecting, and planning again. The instructional cycle is a framework used in education to guide the teaching and learning process. It describes the steps that teachers follow to plan, deliver, assess, and adjust instruction to ensure that students are learning effectively. The instructional cycle is typically iterative, meaning it repeats and evolves based on student needs, progress, and feedback. It constitutes of 5 phases, as we mentioned, and following it properly, it will help to make instructions continuously improving based on feedback and student performance. The instructional cycle is essential for teachers because it provides a structured yet flexible approach to planning, delivering, and assessing lessons. By following the cycle, teachers can ensure that their instruction is intentional, responsive, and continuously improving. It allows teachers to assess student understanding, adjust their teaching strategies accordingly, and provide timely feedback to guide further learning. This process of reflection and adaptation fosters a dynamic learning environment where both the teacher and students are actively engaged in achieving success. For students, the instructional cycle directly supports outstanding progress and attainment by ensuring that learning experiences are well planned, aligned with their needs, and continuously evaluated. By focusing on clear objectives, providing appropriate challenges, and offering ongoing support, the cycle helps students progress steadily. Regular assessment and feedback within the cycle enable teachers to identify areas where students may be struggling and make adjustments to close gaps in learning, leading to higher achievement. Ultimately, the instructional cycle helps create a learning environment that is focused, adaptable, and responsive, ensuring that students not only meet but exceed the educational goals set for their age. How about the leaders of the school? Why the instructional cycle is crucial for the educational leaders? For educational leaders, it is a crucial tool for fostering a culture of continuous improvement and driving student success. By supporting teachers in implementing the cycle effectively, leaders can ensure that teaching practices are data-driven, targeted, and aligned with the overall goals of the school. The cycle encourages leaders to monitor both the effectiveness of instruction and the progress of students, allowing them to identify areas where additional resources or professional development may be needed. It also enables leaders to create a system of accountability and support where teachers feel empowered to refine their practices, and students receive the guidance they need to excel in their learning process. Leaders who champion the instructional cycle create an environment where high quality teaching is prioritized and ongoing assessment and reflection becomes a standard practice at the school. This approach leads to better alignment of instructional strategies with student needs, ultimately driving higher levels of student attainment and progress. By embedding this cycle in the school's daily practices, leaders can ensure that their school not only meets academic standards but also fosters a culture of collaboration, innovation, and excellence in teaching. Let's explore each one of those phases and understand the key activities that are associated with it. Starting with the planning phase. This phase sets the foundation for the learning experience by organizing the content, setting clear goals, and deciding on instructional methods and assessments. This phase constitutes of 6 main key aspects. Number 1, learning objectives. The teacher should define what students should know, understand, and be able to do by the end of the lesson or the unit. This is what we call unpacking the standards. The second one, which is content selection. A teacher should choose the subject matter and materials that will be taught, ensuring they align with the learning objectives. The third key activity is instructional methods, deciding on the teaching strategies that are best matching with the goals and the nature of the content. This could be direct instruction, collaborative learning, inquiry-based learning, or any other learning approach. The fourth one, which is assessment planning, determine how students' learning will be measured, and this includes both formative and summative assessments. Fifth component is resources and materials. Identify the materials, tools, and technologies needed for teaching. The last one, which is differentiation. Plan for accommodations and modifications to support students with diverse learning needs, whether be it special education needs, English language learners, or gifted and talented. In this phase, there are 4 key questions for teachers to consider. Number 1, what are the learning goals and objectives? Number 2, what is the best way to present the content to engage students? Number 3, how will students be assessed? And the fourth one, what resources are required? Let's move now to the second phase, which is the teaching phase. This phase is focused on the implementation of the planned lesson by delivering the content to students through selected instructional methods. And here we're going to discuss 5 main key activities. Number 1, engaging students. How will the lesson start to capture students' attention, creating the interest in them and linking the new content to prior knowledge? We all the time focus on the warm up because the warm up, the first 5 minutes of the lesson will set the tone for students, and they will start either looking enthusiastically at what the teachers will be saying, or they will be disengaged. So this key activity is crucial in the teaching phase. The second one, which is the instruction delivery. As a teacher, you need to present the content through various teaching strategies such as lectures, group work, multimedia, hands-on activities, or discussions, keeping in mind that adapting the delivery method is basic because you need to adjust based on student responses and engagement. The third part, think about the students that we currently have in our classrooms in 2025. Those students, they have a maximum of 8 minutes as a span of attention as per the latest research studies. So unless you are planning intentionally for activities that encourage students to be active inside the classroom, they will become passive learners. So facilitate activities that encourage students to engage with the content actively, such as having problem solving, inquiry based tasks, open ended tasks, collaborative projects, presentations, modeling inside the classroom. So by then, they are using multiple senses and all the time they are working actively inside the class. The fourth one, which is monitoring student understanding. Continuously observe and assess student progress through informal checks to understand what is their level of attainment against the set learning objectives. This does not happen only at the end of the session. It has to be continuous, pre-assessing them at the beginning of the lesson in order to check for their readiness, then throughout the lesson using questioning and observations, then at the end of the lesson with exit tickets in order to see what the post assessment is telling you versus the pre assessment. One thing that I like to stop at here is questioning. All teachers they use questioning. What makes a question effective and what makes it ineffective is the way it is structured. And when we talk about questioning, we are trying to look at one practice that gives multiple guidance about progress, attainment, development of critical thinking skills, problem solving skills. So, as a teacher, you have to think a lot about how you are asking your students, what time are you allowing your students to think about the question and to reflect, and what are you gaining from that as an outcome that will guide you throughout your lesson and for coming lessons as well. Last but not least, which is adapting instruction. Adjust the teaching strategies based on students' feedback and real-time assessment. If students are struggling, you need to provide additional explanation or examples. If you see that your students grasp the idea, challenge them further. So when you are in the planning phase, there should be multiple scenarios about how you will accommodate based on your students' feedback and how you will adjust the delivery inside the classroom to make sure that they're challenged and engaged throughout the class. Three key questions to be considered here. Number one, are students actively engaged in the learning process? Number two, are the teaching methods working for the students? Should have been any adjustments made during the lesson? And the third one, are students demonstrating understanding through formative assessments? Shifting gears now to the third phase, which is the evaluating phase. Here, we aim to assess students' performance and the effectiveness of the instruction. If students are not getting the idea, it means that the approach was not suitable. Again, there is no magic prescripted instructional strategy that works for all students and all teachers. What you will select should be fit for purpose, which means that it is impactful, helping your students to make the needed progress and attainment. So what are the key activities in this phase? Number one, formative assessment. Evaluate students' learning through the lesson or unit using quizzes, exit tickets, class discussions, or observational assessments. The whole point of formative assessment is to guide students and to establish the deep learning. So these should provide immediate feedback on understanding and should guide any necessary adjustments for the instruction to help students before they reach the second key activity, which is the summative assessment. So you are assessing them and providing feedback. You're assessing them and scaffolding. You're assessing and adjusting instruction. Now we reach the summative. At the end of the lesson or unit, you will assess students' overall achievement of the learning objectives through the final tests, projects, presentations, or other assessments. What will come after summative is data analysis. So here I will analyze the results of assessments to identify patterns in student performance. This can help determine whether learning goals were met and where students may need additional support. Now we will come to the fourth one, which is student feedback. Gather the feedback from students about the learning experience, include what they found helpful or challenging to inform future instruction. As you can see, in the evaluating phase, the four key activities are sequential and logical in the way they are structured. If a teacher is not using proper formative assessments, then in the summative assessment, there will be surprises and students will not be able to perform as expected since they didn't have checkpoints regularly during the lessons or after the lessons. Summative is done. Now it's the process where a teacher should have the self-reflection, doing the analysis of the data and what is the data telling the teacher. If there are gaps, it means more emphasis on prerequisites for coming lessons. If students have done well, then the model, the structure, the instructional strategies are very much aligned with the cohort of students that you have. In this phase, there are three key questions to be considered by teachers. Number one, did students meet the learning objectives? Number two, how effective were the assessments in measuring student learning? Third one, what areas of the content did students struggle with the most? Now we move to the fourth phase, which is the reflecting phase. This phase is focused on reflecting on the effectiveness of the lesson, teaching strategies, and student outcome. And we will talk about four key activities related to it. Number one, self-reflection. The teacher evaluates their own teaching performance. What went well, what didn't, and what could be improved. This might involve considering factors such as the pacing, engagement strategies, and clarity of explanations. The second one, student reflection. Encourage students to reflect on their own learning process, identifying what they understood, where they faced difficulties, and what strategies helped them. On the channel, you have a lot of videos that are focused on reflections on the week. That is a very helpful practice where students can reflect weekly on their learning experience, and this can provide teachers with a lot of data. You can check it and see other practices as well that are used to have a proper structured student reflection. Third one, reviewing data. Reflect on assessment data to identify trends in student learning. This could be used to inform the process of policy review, which is done usually annually by schools, and to see whether in the curriculum mapping design there should be more time allocated to specific concepts, the weighting of the standards, and the cross-curricular integration between different subjects. So reviewing data can give a lot of insightful information that can help at different levels across the school. Last one, seeking feedback. Teachers can also seek feedback from their colleagues or mentors for an outside perspective on how to improve their teaching practices. This is so much needed now because currently this generation is evolving very rapidly, and what was working last year is not working with the same efficiency this year. So what are the things that are working with other teachers which might help me to have better engagement, better results, and definitely a stronger impact on the students' cohort? Three key questions to consider here. Number one, what worked well in the lesson and what could be improved? Second one, how did students respond to the instruction? Were they engaged or not? And the third one, what did the assessments reveal about student learning? The last phase, which is planning again phase. Why did they have a specific phase in the instructional cycle for planning again? We cannot jump from the reflection phase to the planning phase. There should be a buffer, a kind of step which we will look into before we start planning for the new lesson. And this is the planning again. It aims to revise and improve future instruction based on the insights gained from the reflection phase, continuing the cycle of improvement. And here we will be talking about 5 key objectives. Number one, adjusting the learning objectives based on the reflection and evaluation. We need to modify the learning objectives if necessary to ensure they are achievable and aligned with student needs. We cannot jump from one objective to the other objective, from one standard to another standard, when we know that our students did not achieve the depth of learning needed. This will create huge cracks in the wall because the curriculum is progressive and continuous from phase to phase, from grade to grade. So we have to ensure that students mastered the concepts. And if they didn't, how can you adjust and accommodate for that? So there should be discussions happening at the level of the teacher, head of department, or the teacher coordinator, or parallel teachers in order to decide on how to move forward in case we have specific struggles that will hinder students from making the needed progress. The second one, refining teaching strategies. As I said earlier, there is no one single teaching strategy that works well for everyone. So we need to adjust the instructional methods based on what was successful or not in the previous cycle. For example, if students had trouble with a specific concept, the teacher might introduce more scaffolding or alternative approaches. Also on this channel, you have a lot of videos which are talking about the learning contract. So if you cannot provide more instructional time because there are specific concepts that should be covered in your curriculum plan, then you can have a contract and provide students with resources that will allow them to do independent studies. Then they will come back with the outcome to show and illustrate the mastery of the concept. Peer tutoring is an important practice as well, and definitely within your school, you can discuss with your peers and get more insights about how to do a certain intervention when you have specific gaps in students' outcome. Revising assessments. If assessments did not effectively measure student learning or were not aligned with the objectives, revise them for future lessons. It's very important for a teacher to think before creating an assessment paper or assessment practice. Once you will administer that assessment, you have data, and this data is very valuable and vital for the whole review and monitor process of the teaching and learning. So if the assessment is not well structured, aligned with the standards and the age group, then you will be having misleading information will that will not guide properly for right decisions to be taken. Last one, which is differentiating more effectively. Based on student performance and feedback, we need to modify the lesson plans to better meet the needs of all learners. It could be having more challenging tasks for advanced students, having additional support for struggling learners, using more manipulatives and models, integrating technology, using the AI tools to provide individual support for students. Different things can be done, but we have to identify where we need to intervene. So by then, all students are making the progress matching with their abilities and attainment level. Incorporating new strategies is an important thing. Why? Because we have to think all the time about the engagement of students. We cannot use the same strategy throughout the academic year. We have to alternate as we go. So by then, all the time, students are looking up to the lesson, wondering what is going to happen and how the teacher is going to provide additional things that will guide and support. How the phases interact. This is a key question that I have been asked in almost every professional development session I delivered about instructional cycle. The instructional cycle is dynamic by nature and continuously evolve. After the planning phase, instruction begins. Once teaching is completed, teachers evaluate the students' performance. Then teachers reflect on the effectiveness of their approach and make necessary adjustments. Finally, the teacher plans again, integrating improvements based on the reflection and evaluation. And the cycle keep repeating itself over and over, helping to create more effective and personalized learning experiences over time. This iterative process supports the ongoing professional development for educators and ensures that teachers' needs are continuously met through thoughtful and responsive teaching practices. A school which deploys the instructional cycle will never have an issue to decide and determine what type of professional development is needed or what kind of support the students are lagging or missing. We need to be systematic in the way we look at the teaching and learning process. Sometimes I am asked from leaders, what type of professional development can we provide? This question by itself gives a clear indication that the practices at the school are ad hoc. Instructional cycle has to be the leading practice for heads of departments, coordinators, and teachers. So by then, you can specifically identify the gap which is preventing students from achieving the best results in the internal and external assessments. Instructional cycle supports teachers in creating reliable and valid assessments by emphasizing a systematic, reflective, and iterative approach to teaching and learning. The cycle structured phases ensure that assessments are closely aligned with the learning objectives and effectively measure student progress and attainment. We have spoken in details about each one of those, but quickly we will just get into briefing that for each one of the phases. So in the planning, what teachers do, they will think about the academics and student cohort to put the plan. They will design one or more lessons, make material accessible to all, and select or create an assessment measure. In the teaching, teachers will link new information to prior knowledge, talk about the learning goals, present and lead the lesson, allow students to try new skills, observe students in action, provide feedback, and allow for more practice. In the evaluating phase, teachers will administer a test, tool, or assessment, use rubrics to evaluate learning, chart student levels and progress. In the reflection, teachers will determine the effectiveness of the lesson. In the planning again, teachers will identify next steps and they will adjust the lessons accordingly, which might include looking at the unit planners and the yearly plans as well. How does the instructional cycle support the reliability and validity of assessment? When we speak about validity, the instructional cycle helps ensure validity by aligning assessments directly with clear learning objectives. Teachers plan assessments based on what they intended to teach, monitor progress throughout the teaching phase, and analyze results to confirm whether the assessments are accurately measuring student achievement or not. When it comes to reliability, the cycle supports reliability by using multiple forms of assessment, be it formative or summative, and by encouraging regular feedback and reflection. Teachers gather data over time, adjusting instruction and assessments based on this feedback, which helps create more consistent, dependable results. So, by engaging in this continuous cycle of planning, teaching, evaluating, reflecting, and planning again, teachers can ensure that their assessments are reliable. Between parentheses, we're providing consistent results over time, and valid, between parentheses, measure what they are intended to measure, thus giving an accurate picture of students' progress and attainment, which is what we will be discussing in depth in the coming weekly videos, which are posted every Thursday on the channel. Now we will shed the light on the timeline for the evolution of the concept of instructional cycle. How did it start and who contributed to this important framework? Starting with John Dewey, who is considered to be one of the most influential philosophers in the field of education. He proposed that learning should be experiential and reflective. Dewey's idea of reflective practice, where educators engage in continuous cycles of experience, reflection, and adjustment, is fundamental to the concept of the instructional cycle. His approach emphasizes the importance of learning through doing and adapting based on experiences. As we all know, his key work, Democracy and Education in 1916, was key. And in this one, there was a main idea which Dewey's emphasized, and it is about the idea of learning as a process of inquiry and problem solving. His work laid the groundwork for educators to view teaching as a cyclical process where reflection leads to improved practice. Looking at David Kolb, he developed the experiential learning theory, ELT, which focused on the role of experience in the learning process. His experiential learning cycle highlights four stages: concrete experience, reflective observation, abstract conceptualization, and active experimentation. This model closely parallels the instructional cycle as it views learning as a continuous process where learners move through cycles of experience, reflection, and action. Kolb's model emphasizes that effective learning requires reflection on experience, followed by the development of new ideas and testing them in future experiences. His cycle is directly related to the iterative nature of the instructional cycle, and in his key work, which is titled Experiential Learning, Experience as the Source of Learning and Development, which was published in 1984, his model was focused a lot on the importance of looking at the teaching and learning process as a cycle which keeps repeating itself over and over and over from the first day of the academic year until the last day. Looking at Lee Solomon, who introduced the concept of pedagogical content knowledge, PCK, which refers to the knowledge teachers need to effectively teach specific content. He emphasized that teaching is not just about understanding the content, but also about knowing how to teach it in ways that facilitate learning. While not directly about the instructional cycle, his work influenced how teachers approach reflecting and adapting in their instructional practice. Solomon's focus on the dynamic relationship between content knowledge and pedagogical knowledge supported the idea that teaching is a reflective practice and effective instruction requires constant adaptation to students' needs. In his famous key work, Those Who Understand Knowledge Growth in Teaching, which was published in 1986, he focused a lot on looking at the planning and delivery as interrelated practices for a teacher. Moving forward, Donald Schwann, who is known for his work on reflective practice and how professionals, including teachers, engage in continuous learning and improvement, he introduced the concept of reflection in action and reflection on action, which parallels the evaluating and reflecting phases of the instructional cycle. He emphasized that professionals should reflect both during and after their work to enhance their practice. His key work, The Reflective Practitioner, How Professionals Think in Action, which was published in 1983, focused a lot on looking at the reflection practice as being very much instrumental in the instructional cycle. So he argued that professionals should engage in reflection both in the moment while teaching and after the fact, helping to refine their practice. This reflective practice model supports the iterative nature of the instructional cycle, where educators continuously improve their teaching based on experience and reflection. Moving forward to look at Robert Gant, who was a key figure in the development of the instructional design theory, particularly with his conditions of learning and the 9 events of instruction. His work provides a structured approach to designing instruction that aligns with the phases of the instructional cycle, especially the planning and teaching phases. Galen's model emphasizes the importance of clear goals, organized content, and assessment to guide the learning process. The Gagan's instructional design model outlines the key stages that need to occur for effective learning, including gaining attention, presenting content, and providing feedback. His framework is still widely used in instructional planning today and aligns with the reflective and evaluative steps of the instructional cycle. His key work was The Conditions of Learning, which was published in 1965. Moving to Benjamin Bloom, who is best known for his development of the taxonomy of educational objectives, which categorizes different levels of cognitive learning. His work has had a profound impact on how instructional goals and assessments are designed, making it easier for educators to plan lessons, evaluate learning, and reflect on the outcome. Bloom's taxonomy informs the planning and evaluating phases of the instructional cycle. Bloom's taxonomy helps educators create clear, measurable objectives and design assessment to evaluate whether those objectives have been met or not with the needed depth of knowledge. This taxonomy also provides a framework for reflecting on the effectiveness of instructional strategies. Looking at Carol Ann Tomlinson, who is a leader in the field of differentiated instruction, a teaching approach that tailors instruction to meet the diverse needs of students. Her work emphasizes the importance of continuous assessment and reflection to adjust instruction in real time, which is directly related to the evaluating and reflecting phases of instructional cycle. Her key work, entitled The Differentiated Classroom, Responding to the Needs of All Learners, which was published in 2001, Tomlinson advocates for a flexible approach to instruction, where teachers assess students' readiness, interests, and learning profiles and then adjust instruction accordingly. This ongoing assessment and adjustment mirror the iterative nature of the instructional cycle. Also, Grant Wiggins and J. McTighe They have developed the understanding by design framework, which guides teachers through an iterative process of defining outcomes, planning instruction, assessing learning, and reflecting on the effectiveness of the plan. They developed the UBD framework, which focuses on backward design for curriculum planning. As we all know, this approach encourages educators to begin with the end in mind, identifying desired learning outcomes and then planning assessments and learning activities. The UBD emphasizes the importance of reflection and adjustment throughout the teaching process. This approach aligns with the phases of the instructional cycle, especially the planning and evaluating phases. As a summary of contributions, we have spoken about the reflective practice of John Dewey. We spoke about the experiential learning cycle by David Cole. We spoke about the reflective practice concept by Donald Schwann. We spoke about the contribution of Robert Gagnon with his instructional design model. We spoke about Benjamin Bloom and his famous taxonomy and how it supports the instructional cycle. Carol Ann Tomlinson and her advocacy of differentiation. Grant Wiggins and Jay McTighe with the understanding by design. I strongly support those of you who would like to dig deeper and deeper in order to get into the roots of how the concept started. That's why in every video I am dedicating a chunk of time to speak about the scholars and the researchers who contributed to the idea and to the practice. As teachers, we need to be convinced about concepts before we go and implement them. Be convinced about the importance of looking at the teaching practices as one complete cycle because they're all interrelated. When we start seeing how they are interrelated and integrated, then we will be achieving excellence and all the different pieces of the puzzle will fall in the right place. Rather than I see different practices that are disconnected. Differentiation, Bloom's taxonomy for the learning objectives, assessment alignment with the curriculum, all of those are interrelated and they are not disconnected. So read more, try to dig deeper and deeper to be convinced about those concepts and to start implementing them in your schools, in your classroom, and having a very smooth and easy process of teaching and learning with your students where you feel happy and at ease rather than I feel bombarded with different concepts coming from different places and I need to accommodate for all of this. In conclusion, the instructional cycle is a powerful framework that guides effective teaching and learning. So, by planning, implementing, and assessing, educators can create a structured yet flexible approach to instruction, ensuring that students not only absorb the information but also engage deeply with the content. Whether you are an educator looking to refine your approach or someone interested in understanding the depth of the teaching and learning cycle, it's clear that the instructional cycle offers immense value in creating dynamic learning experiences. Our channel is dedicated to providing in-depth, authentic educational content that goes beyond surface level concepts, offering practical insights and best practices for educators at all levels. With this video, if you will read the description, you will find references to so many other videos which were posted previously on the channel that offers practical insights and best practices related to the different phases of the instructional cycle. To make sure you're consistently receiving the high quality content, we post a new video every Thursday, keeping you updated with fresh ideas and valuable resources. We invite you to join our community where educators from all backgrounds can learn, share, and grow together. So, if you're passionate about education and want to continue exploring best practices, be sure to subscribe and tune in every Thursday for new content that will help you take your teaching to the next level. We are looking forward to reading your comments, and please share this with your community in order to make sure that other educators from all around the globe are taking their teaching to the next level. Thank you.